Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here, and I've got an urgent report for you, specifically in regards to the countless number of riots and protests happening all across America, where the Black Lives Movement organization is teaming up with regular protesters to stand against violence between cops and black people, cops killing and targeting black people. Well, that is specifically the claim on the Black Lives Matter movement, what they stand against. Now, we know a lot of violence is being incited by this. I know that there are lots of protests that have happened over this past week, over this past month, where they've gotten to the point where they have been impeding traffic, not to mention the fact of what happened in Dallas, where the horrible situation of 5 cops being shot dead at this particular event. And now here's the thing, we know what happened with Ferguson, how things got out of hand, and we know looking into the future how things are going to be. But what I want to do in this report is show you a few statistics so you can kind of get an overall agenda of what's going on. Now here's the thing. All of this is playing into the hands of the elite and globalists, and we don't want that. A few months ago, I put out a report called UN Takeover, and I went through the Strong Cities Network and how our globalists, our elite, are trying to not just federalize, that's here in America, but they want to eventually pull in a new world order army. That is the end agenda. And how are they going to do that? Well, via the Loretta Lynch releasement of this Strong Cities Network last year, she stated how they wanted to team up cities like New York City, Michigan, Detroit, Michigan, along with other countries like Paris and many other out there to form this unification, so to speak, where they share intel, share information about what takes place, some of the tactics, some of the stuff that they use, and then push eventually into this United Nations World Peacekeeping Force, so they claim. Now here's the thing, when we see these kinds of riots and civil uprisings here in America, I also put out a report a couple months ago, quite a few times, in which I warned that there would be an uptick of domestic rioting here in our own country, that our protests would increase, that riots would increase, and that is exactly what is happening. Exactly what I said would happen is now playing out. Now, how did I know this? Well, we just have to look to other countries. George Soros is infamous for funding organizations to incite riots, Arab Spring, many others, and to get people rioting and start kind of a civil war in order to put more money in his globalist pocket. Well, that's exactly what he's done with the Black Lives Matter organization, where he is pouring his money into this organization and funding this organization. And as a result, here we have incited violence all across the country from various areas. But here's the deal. The globalists want a civil uprising. They want it. Why? Well, then they can federalize our local police force, bring in a police state, so to speak, implement martial law. Now, let me correct this. Martial law is not going to be countrywide. There's no manpower to do that, but they can do it by city, and it won't be under that banner. It'll be more of a police state. That's what they want with our federal, to take our police and federalize our police. Now, here's where it starts. What our globalists and people at the UN are doing is they're trying to paint the bad guy as our local police departments. That's the agenda right now. Let's turn citizens upon citizens and cause riots in and among themselves. So in other words, you and I don't pay attention to the real enemy. Who is the real enemy? The United Nations, the tyrannical, dictating, elitist, the Illuminati, pulling straight things from behind the scenes. They are the real enemy. They are the ones we should be concerned about, not our local police departments, not the people that are helping us in our own communities. The police are not the bad guys. Now, let me say this, there's corruption in them, absolutely. I've had things wrongfully done by some, I've also had rightfully things done. Okay, there's good and bad in every organization, but here's the end game. The Illuminati and those running things, the secret organizations, wants you and I to battle against our own people. So we have this sort of civil uprising, civil riots, and issues that are happening domestically, in our states and in our cities. Then they will federalize our police force. Now, that's the goal. Will they get there? I don't know. But I do know that they're already attempting to militarize our police by giving them MRAPs, things that shouldn't be allowed at your local PD, night vision goggles and major military gear, all this stuff. And they're really beefing up our police to paint them more of a military style versus your local PD. And why do they do that? Well, I personally believe to get you and I on edge, on antsy against them. Well, that's not the real agenda. No, they don't need to be militarized. No, our police don't need those equipments. But nonetheless, the elitists are giving it to them in order to cause more tension, so to speak. That's my personal belief. But listen to me. We don't need to, the Black Lives Matter and many other peoples, and not just them. There's some in their organization who are, some who aren't, that are, inciting bad things that they shouldn't be. But we need to stay focused on who the real enemy is. Those elite running the country from behind the scenes. Do not play into their game. And a big sign of that is because George Soros' funding of this organization, and this is exactly what we're seeing play out. Riots and protests have come to the streets of America. George Soros, we cannot let him and others have their way. Now, we already know that that's part of the goal, but they want to destabilize the country. They want to destabilize us. And once we get destabilized, then they will bring in that police force, federalize it, and then eventually make it into the United Nations World Police Force. Step by step, take away the rights from the states and give them to the federal government. These are the things we're attempting to face. These are the things we need to stand against. And we need to stand with our local police departments and stand with them, not the corrupt side, but because they are who is going to be on our side when push comes to shove, as well as many in the military, I believe, but you're going to get it on both sides of the fence. Keep that in mind. But don't give in to the elitist agenda to cause strife in our great land. With that, let me just show you a few statistics. The first statistics and a few news reports. The first one I want to show you is from the Washington Post, and it makes me sick. Because they claim the Black Lives Matter violence that is within there, or the violence that is being caused at the protest, which is a mingled of folk, not just solely them, but they're claiming that that's something that Martin Luther King did in his day, and violence is needed in order to get the ears of those in power. So, kind of just, but let's delve into that report. All right, so the first thing that I want to show you here is from the Washington Post. It says, don't criticize Black Lives Matter for provoking violence. The civil rights movement did too. Interesting. And I almost feel as if, again, the Washington Post is pushing this kind of violence, an awful thin line. Now, that was written back in August of 2015, but I wanted to bring it up because I think it's a very real sign of some of the things that are happening today. Now, this I found on eliframe.com, and it says at least 1,332 Black Lives Matters demonstrations have been held in the last 723 days. And you can go through this entire list, but we have New Jersey, Jersey City on the 7th, dozens attended. Here's 1,000 in Oakland. These are all on the 7th. Denver, 100. New York, Kensington, 35 on the 7th. 1,000 on the 7th. Hundreds in Philadelphia, New York, Washington, D.C. All on the 7th here. Atlanta, Georgia, 1,000. Chicago, 400. Dallas, 100. Baton Rouge, 300. We know the things that went down where 5 cops were killed, injuring 7 and 2 civilians injured as well. But it was specifically in regards to, they were standing against the corruption against Alton Sterling there. But on the 6th, here's one. But look, you can go through this entire list. I'm just going to scroll through it for you here, but it goes on and on to the amount of protesters. So it's obvious they want their voices heard. Moving on, here's just a quick link by LA Times. Protesters with Black Lives Matter shut down the freeway. Black Lives Matter, thousands protest in U.S. cities. That's on Al Jazeera. NBC News, hundreds arrested in protest over police shootings in St. Paul, Baton Rouge. I believe numbers were around 100, but there were cops injured as well in this particular event. It was recent, but anyway, you can go to that report. Here's NBC 26. Many Americans protest across country following police shooting deaths of Black men. Here's another one. The latest police shooting protests gather in Madison. This is ABC 31. And obviously what happened in Dallas, which they are deeming an act of, you guessed it, domestic terrorism. It seems to be somewhat of a common thread nowadays, unfortunately. There's also Black Lives Matter condemns Dallas shooting planned protest. Well, that's good news there. I wanted to show you that as well. Now, here's another thing that I want to get to, and I didn't bring this up a moment ago, but here's an executive order issued by President Barack Hussein Obama on July 1st of this year, and he states that pre- and post-strike measures to address civilian casualties. What does Obama know that we do not know? So interesting how he wants to prepare American cities and the American country for, good old U.S.A. He wants to prepare for casualties. Lots you can read up on it, but that truly is it in a nutshell. So why prepare for such casualties, and why now? Well, lots of civil uprising, maybe that is the reason. Now, last thing I want to do is get into some statistics. Now, here I am on theguardian.com. This one is 2015, which you're looking at on the screen, where 1,146 people were killed by police officers last year. Then it breaks it down by race and ethnicity. 306 blacks, 195 Hispanic, 13 Native American, 581 white, 24 Asian, and 27 other. Wait a minute. What this actually shows is there are more white people are killed per black people. Same thing happens in 2006. Here we are currently at 571, 138 blacks, while 281 whites have been killed. Well, the number of white people does exceed the number of black deaths. We do have to keep in mind that the black people are more of a minority than white people. White people outnumber the blacks a lot more. So technically, there are more black killings than white when we take into consideration the minority. There were 2 different statistics that I saw. One claimed that it's 2.5 times more likely. The other was 4 times more likely. But that's why, there technically is more black deaths than white people, even though the statistics are read out like that. Now, another thing that I want to show you is how many deaths of police officers are there every year. Well, here's just these past years alone: 123 last year, 122 the year before that. So there are cops dying as well. Now, on the Daily Wire here, I found some interesting information. And here it states 5 statistics you need to know about cops killing blacks. Great information on this, but what I want to do is scroll down to one particular area, number 4, and it says Black and Hispanic police officers are more likely to fire a gun at blacks than a white officer. This is according to a Department of Justice report put out in 2015 about this particular, the Philadelphia Police Department, and is confirmed by a study conducted at the University of Pennsylvania. But they basically determined black cops were 3.3 times more likely to fire a gun than other cops at a crime scene. Then there's also this: blacks are more likely to kill cops than be killed by cops. This is according to FBI data, which also found that 40% of cop killers are black. So here, if we take all this into consideration, more black people are killed by cops. Yes. But then when you take into account that black people also kill a lot of cops, then we have to factor in that as well. Here's another hard truth I want you to see, and then I'll talk with you guys in a moment, but hard truth: more law enforcement officers killed each year than young black men by white cops. Please don't shoot the messenger. I am not a racist person. You know, I love every color. I am just sharing the statistics here, but it says hard truth. So if we take law enforcement officers are killed each year than young black men by white cops. So this particular one gets into the fact that 96 black males who are killed by white police officers each year. That's just by the white cops killing black people. But when you take into consideration some of those, and a lot of those deaths from cops against black people, or even black on black, Hispanic on black. It's not necessarily always white on black, but 96 black males were killed specifically by white officers, and another 300 white males who are killed by police officers according to FBI statistics. So there's a little bit of flip-flop here. So in 2014, we had 117 deaths of cops and 96 deaths between white officers and black males, so to speak. So there's that other report. So there you have it. Please don't shoot the messenger. I'm just sharing statistics as they are. Now, you can do with that what you will. The fact of the matter is, I don't think that, there obviously is somewhat of an issue, but it's really superly over-exaggerated and being hyper-inflamed, especially with the fact that the Washington Post is putting out reports saying their violence is acceptable, and it's similar to that of what happened with Martin Luther King. Crazy times in which we live in. Now, we must not allow this to play into the globalist agenda of inciting and starting race wars. We cannot do that. That's ludicrous. And, so-and-so is a racist, she's racist, this, you wear a brown bag, you're racist, you wear a white shirt, you're racist. Pretty much all things will be banned. It's absurd. Drop it. And you know what? When President Obama came in office, things were supposed to be better in that realm, but they seem to have gotten worse. Why? Well, they needed a president like him to incite more of this. That's my only case. Otherwise, it should have gotten a million times better. But Obama made sure that that was not the case. Sad, sad, sad times in which we live. Now, I want to encourage you, please keep your eye on who the real enemy is. It's not your local police department. It's not somebody who's white, black, Hispanic, Mexican, yellow, green, whatever. We all know that, and we all have a heart for each other. A lot of us do. And all of my viewers out there, there's not a bunch of racist people. There's not a bunch of any of that going on, which is why I truly think it's being over-exasperated by those in the elite in order to start a civil war to bring in their police force via the Strong Cities Network, already implemented last year, the announcement made by Loretta Lynch. Please, again, keep in mind who the real enemy is. And it's not your brothers and sisters. It's not your local PDs. It's the Illuminati, elite, globalists, like George Soros, running things from behind the scenes. Anyhow, thanks again. again for tuning into my channel. And please don't forget to check out my sponsor at getthetea.com. He's got lots of great products that keep you upbeat and healthy. And quite frankly, without some of his stuff, I wouldn't be as peppy as I am from time to time. But